The message went out across 10,000 star systems. It traveled through the dark spaces between galaxies. It reached every corner of civilized space. The Interstellar Council had sent it with one simple request. They needed help. Someone was dying, and they needed anyone who would listen. Ambassador Telos stood in the great hall of the council station. His 4 arms hung at his sides. His large black eyes looked at the screens around him. Each screen showed a different species. Each species had given the same answer. No. The said no. They were too far away. The journey would take too long. The said no. They had signed peace treaties with the Dominion. They could not break their word. The said no. Their ships were not built for war. The said no. They did not care about the let them burn. Telos felt his heart sink. He had 3 of them, and all 3 felt heavy with sadness. They were a gentle people. They had soft blue skin and large round eyes. They built beautiful cities that floated in the clouds of their world. They wrote poetry and made music that could make even the coldest species weep. They had never hurt anyone. And now the Dominion had come for them. They were everything they were not. They were tall and covered in dark scales. Their eyes were red like fire. They conquered worlds because they enjoyed it. They took slaves. They burned cities. They laughed at the screams of the weak. It was called Prime. It was a beautiful place of floating islands and endless skis. 3 billion lived there. 3 billion gentle souls who had never known war. The fleet had arrived 2 days ago. 50 warships, each one bigger than any building. They had given them a simple choice: surrender and become slaves, or fight and die. They had no army. They had no weapons. They had nothing but their songs and their hopes. Telos had sent the distress call immediately. The council was supposed to protect its members. The council was supposed to stand for peace and justice. But the council was made of cowards. Every species looked at the fleet and felt fear. Every species decided that they were not worth dying for. The screens went dark one by one. They signed off. They signed off. They signed off. Soon, Telos stood alone in the great hall. The only light came from the stars outside the massive windows. He was about to turn away when a new signal appeared. His translator struggled with the language at first. Then the words became clear. "This is the Earth vessel Horizon. We received your distress call. We are coming." Telos felt his blood run cold. Earth, humans. Of all the species in the galaxy, only the humans had answered. He quickly opened a channel. A face appeared on the screen. It was a human male. His skin was tan and his hair was black and cut short. His eyes were dark and sharp. There was no fear in those eyes. There was only purpose. "I am Captain Park of the Horizon," the human said. "We are 3 days away from Prime. Give us the details." Telos hesitated. He had read the files on humans. Every member of the council had read those files. Humans were classified as a Class 7 species. This was the highest danger rating the council could give. They were listed as apex predators. Their planet had forged them in blood and fire. They had fought wars among themselves for thousands of years. They were violent. They were unpredictable. They were ruthless. "Captain Park," Telos said carefully, "I must inform you that the Dominion has 50 warships in orbit around Prime. Their ground forces number in the hundreds of thousands. This is not a fight you can win." The human captain smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who had heard such words many times before. "How many civilians are on that planet?" Captain Park asked. 3 billion, Telos answered. "Then we will come." The screen flickered and another human appeared. This one was female. Her hair was long and black, pulled back in a tight tail. Her face was calm but serious. She wore the same gray uniform as the captain. "Ambassador," she said, "I am Lieutenant. I will be handling tactical operations. We need all the information you have on ship formations and ground positions." Telos sent the files immediately. He watched as the 2 humans looked at the data. Their expressions did not change. They saw the numbers. 50 warships against one. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers against whatever small crew this ship carried, and they did not look afraid. "Captain Park," Tella said, "I must ask you a question." "Ask." "Why every other species refused? They all said no. Why did you say yes?" Captain Park was quiet for a moment. He looked at the screen showing the data on Prime. He looked at the images of the floating cities. He looked at the faces of the people who were waiting to die. "Because someone asked for help," he said simply, "and we were close enough to hear." Lieutenant added something in their human language. Tellas's translator worked on it for a moment, then gave him the meaning. "No one gets left behind, not on our watch." The communication ended. Tellas stood alone again in the great hall, but now he felt something he had not felt before. He was not sure if it was hope or fear. Perhaps it was both. He opened a channel to the leadership. A face appeared on his screen. It was Elder Soma, the oldest and of the council. Her blue skin was pale with stress. Her large eyes were red from crying. "Ambassador," she said, "have you found anyone who will help us?" Tellas paused. How could he explain this? How could he tell her that the only species willing to save her people was one of the most dangerous in the galaxy? "Yes," he said finally, "someone is coming." Elder Soma's face lit up with hope. "Who? Which species has agreed to help us?" "The humans." The hope on Elder Soma's face flickered. Like Tellas, she had read the files. She knew what humans were capable of. She knew the stories. "Humans," she repeated slowly, "the ruthless ones." "Yes." There was a long silence. Elder Soma looked away from the screen. She was thinking. She was weighing the danger of accepting help from predators against the certain death that waited for her people. "How many ships are they sending?" she asked. "One." Elder Soma closed her eyes. "One ship against 50. "Yes." "Then we are truly doomed." Tellas wanted to argue. He wanted to tell her that there was still hope, but he could not lie to her. One human ship against the entire fleet was not a rescue. It was a suicide mission. "Elder Soma," he said, "perhaps we should tell them not to come. Perhaps we should spare them this death." Elder Soma opened her eyes. There was something new in them now. Something that looked almost like the fire he had seen in Captain Park's eyes. "No," she said. "They chose to come. They chose to fight for us when no one else would. We will not take that choice away from them." She paused. "And who knows? The humans are strange creatures. Perhaps they know something we do not." 3 days passed. The fleet tightened its grip on Prime. Soldiers landed on the surface and began rounding up civilians. They put them in camps. They separated families. They laughed at their tears. The commander was called General Vex. He was the largest anyone had ever seen. His scales were black instead of the usual dark green. His eyes burned with cruel intelligence. He had conquered 12 worlds before this one. He had never lost. General Vex stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the planet below. The floating cities were beautiful. He would enjoy burning them. "General," one of his officers said, "we have detected a ship approaching the system." "One of the Council's vessels?" Vex asked with a bored voice. "No, General, the signature is unknown. We are analyzing it now." The officer paused. Then his voice changed. It became uncertain. "General, it is a human ship." Vex turned slowly. "Human?" "Yes, General, one ship. It is called the Horizon." Vex felt something he had not felt in many years. It was not fear, did not feel fear, but it was something close. It was respect. He had heard stories about humans. Every species in the galaxy had heard stories. Humans were young. They had only been traveling among the stars for 200 years, but in that short time, they had earned a reputation that made even the pause. Humans were survivors. Their planet had tried to kill them for millions of years, and they had refused to die. They had fought ice ages and plagues and predators and each other. They had crawled out of the mud and reached for the stars. and they had done it all through pure, stubborn will. The council called them ruthless. They meant it as a warning, but Vex knew better. He knew that ruthless was just another word for determined, another word for unbreakable, another word for dangerous. "One ship," Vex said slowly. "They send one ship against my fleet. Should we destroy it, General?" Vex thought about it. He could order his ships to open fire the moment the human vessel arrived. He could end this before it began. It would be the smart thing to do. But Vex was curious. He wanted to see what one human ship thought it could accomplish against 50 warships. He wanted to understand what kind of creatures would fly into certain death for a species they had never met. "No," he said, "let them come. Let them see our power. Let them know what they face." He smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Then we will destroy them slowly. We will make an example of them. We will show the galaxy what happens to those who stand against the Dominion." The horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Captain Park stood on the bridge and looked at the screens. He saw the fleet. He saw the planet below. He saw the camps where innocent people waited to die. Lieutenant stood beside him. "Orders, Captain." Park took a deep breath. He thought about his crew. 47 humans who had volunteered for this mission. 47 souls who knew they might not come home. "Open a channel to the flagship," he said. The screen flickered. General Vex appeared. His red eyes studied the human captain with interest. "Human," Vex said, "you are either very brave or very foolish." "I am Captain Park. I am here to evacuate the civilians." Vex laughed. It was an ugly sound. "You, one ship, you think you can take 3 billion people from under my nose?" "No," Park said calmly. "I think I am going to do it whether you let me or not." The laughter stopped. Vex leaned forward. "You threaten me, human." "I do not make threats," Park said. "I make promises, and I promise you this. Every civilian on that planet is under my protection now. If you harm even one of them, I will make you regret it." Vex's red eyes burned with anger. "You are one ship against 50. You have no chance." Park smiled that same cold smile from before. "I have heard that before." He cut the communication. Then he turned to his crew. "Battle stations," he said quietly. "Let us show them what humans can do." The horizon moved through space like a knife through water. It was not a big ship. Compared to the warships, it looked like a small fish swimming toward a group of sharks. But the crew inside that small ship showed no fear. Lieutenant sat at her station. Her fingers moved across the controls with speed and skill. Screens showed her everything she needed to know: enemy positions, weapon ranges, shield strengths. She had studied war since she was 18 years old. She had fought in 3 conflicts before this one. She knew how to find weakness in any enemy. "Captain," she said, "the fleet is holding position around the planet. They have formed a standard defensive ring. 20 ships in the outer layer, 20 in the middle layer, 10 around the planet itself." Captain Park nodded. He stood at the center of the bridge with his hands behind his back. His face was calm. His eyes were focused. "Their formation is good," he said, "but it tells me something important." "What is that, Captain?" "They are afraid of something reaching the planet. They are protecting it. That means they value what is on the surface." "Understood. They were not just here to conquer. They wanted the alive. They wanted slaves. This was useful information." "If we threaten the surface, they will react," she said. "Yes, and when they react, they will make mistakes." The horizon continued forward. The fleet did not move. General Vex was watching. He was waiting to see what the humans would do. On the planet below, they waited in fear. They had been gathered in large camps at the edge of their floating cities. Soldiers walked among them with weapons ready. Any who tried to run was beaten. Any who fought back was killed. Elder Soma stood in one of the largest camps. She was surrounded by thousands of her people. Children cried for their parents. Parents cried for their children. The sound of suffering filled the air. A young approached her. His name was. He was barely an adult, but his eyes were filled with anger instead of fear. Elder, he said, we cannot just wait here. We must do something. What would you have us do? Soma asked gently. We have no weapons, we have no training. If we fight, we will die. Then we die fighting, said. That is better than dying as slaves. Soma looked at the young one with sadness and pride. He was brave. He was foolish. He reminded her of what her people could have been if they had not chosen peace so completely. The humans are coming, she said. One ship replied. One ship cannot save us. Perhaps not, but they are coming anyway. That means something, does it not? Did not answer. He looked up at the sky. Somewhere beyond those clouds, beyond the atmosphere, a single human vessel was approaching a fleet of 50 warships. It was madness. It was beautiful. On the horizon, the crew prepared for what was coming. The ship had only 47 humans aboard, but every one of them was ready. In the weapons bay, Sergeant Han checked his rifle for the 10th time. He was a large man with broad shoulders and a face that had seen too many battles. His hands were steady. His heart was calm. He had made peace with death long ago. He was not afraid to meet it again. Beside him stood the other members of his squad. There were 8 of them in total. Lee was the youngest. She was only 22, but she could shoot better than anyone else on the ship. Park was the oldest after Han. He was quiet and serious, with gray starting to show in his hair. Was the team medic. She carried medicine instead of weapons, but she was just as brave as any soldier. Listen up, Han said. When we hit the surface, our job is simple. Find civilians, protect civilians, get civilians to safety. They are going to fight us every step of the way. We will fight them back. How do we get to the surface? Lee asked. The fleet will shoot down any shuttle we launch. The captain has a plan, Han said. What is the plan? Han smiled. It was not a happy smile. He is going to give the something else to worry about. On the bridge, Captain Park was putting that plan into action. He looked at his navigator, a thin man named. I need you to do something crazy, the captain said. I am on a ship with 47 people facing 50 warships, replied. Everything we do is crazy. Good point. I need you to fly us through the formation. Everyone on the bridge went silent. Flying through an enemy formation was dangerous. Flying through a formation of 50 warships was suicide. Through asked. Yes, fast and close. I want every ship firing at us. I want their attention completely on this ship. They will destroy us. Maybe, but maybe not. Park turned to, Lieutenant, what do the warships use for shields? Checked her data. Plasma-based energy barriers, standard for species at their technology level, strong against energy weapons, weaker against physical impacts. And their weapons? Plasma cannons, energy beams, no missiles or projectile weapons. Park nodded slowly. That is their weakness. Understood immediately. Our point defense system. It is designed to shoot down missiles and debris, physical objects. If we get close enough, their plasma weapons will have trouble hitting us. The energy will scatter at close range. Exactly. If we get close enough and move fast enough, their weapons become less accurate, and our weapons become more effective. It was a dangerous plan. Getting close to 50 warships meant flying through a storm of fire. One mistake would mean death, but it was the only chance they had. I will get us through, said quietly. I do not promise we will have a ship left when I am done, but I will get us through. That is all I ask. The horizon accelerated. The ship shot forward like an arrow toward the fleet. On every warship, alarms began to sound. General Vex watched from his flagship. His red eyes narrowed as he saw the human ship approaching at high speed. They are attacking, one of his officers said. One ship is attacking our entire fleet. Humans, Vex growled. They truly are mad. Should we open fire, General? All ships, destroy that vessel. The fleet opened fire. Hundreds of plasma cannons unleashed their fury at the same moment. The space around the horizon filled with deadly light. Any other ship would have been destroyed in seconds. But was not any navigator. His hands danced across the controls. The horizon twisted and spun through the wall of fire. Plasma bolts passed so close that the crew could feel the heat through the hull. The ship rolled left, then right, then dove under a blast that would have cut it in half. "Shields at 80%, someone called out. "Keep going," Park ordered. The horizon plunged into the formation. It weaved between warships, using their own vessels as cover. They could not fire freely without risking hits on their own ships. Confusion spread through their fleet. "Fire at will," commanded. The horizon's weapon systems came alive. Unlike the humans used projectile weapons that fired metal slugs at incredible speeds, missiles that could track and follow their targets, physical weapons that shields struggled to stop. The first ship took 3 hits to its engine section. Fire bloomed along its hull. The second ship lost its forward weapons to a pair of missiles that slipped through its shields. The third ship took a hit to its bridge, killing its command crew. 3 ships damaged in the first minute. The fleet fell into chaos. "Impossible," General Vex roared. "One ship cannot do this." But the humans were doing it. The horizon danced through the fleet like a ghost. It struck and disappeared. It fired and moved. It was everywhere and nowhere at once. While the fleet was distracted, 2 small shuttles slipped away from the horizon. They were painted black and ran with minimal power. No one was watching for them. Every eye was on the battle above. Han sat in the first shuttle with his squad. The shuttle shook as it entered the atmosphere. Outside the windows, flames covered everything. "Landing zone in 2 minutes, the pilot announced. Han looked at his team. "Remember what we are here for, not to win a war, to save lives. We find civilians and we protect them. Everything else is secondary." The shuttle broke through the clouds. Below them, a city floated in the air. It was beautiful even now, with fires burning in several districts. Patrol ships flew in the distance, but they were not looking up. They were looking at the chaos in orbit. The shuttle landed on a platform at the edge of the city. The door opened. Han and his squad moved out. The streets were empty. They had already swept through here, taking everyone to the camps. But there might be survivors hiding. There might be people who had escaped. "Spread out," Han ordered. "Search pattern Gamma. Report anything you find." The squad moved through the city. The buildings were strange and beautiful. They seemed to be made of crystal and light. Everything was designed for beings who could float on the wind. They were not like humans. They could glide on air currents. Their cities reflected this, with open spaces and no railings. Lee found the first survivors. They were hiding in a storage room beneath a music hall. 20, mostly children and their caretakers. Their blue skin was pale with fear. Their large eyes were wet with tears. "It is okay," said gently. She did not speak their language, but her translator worked well enough. "We are here to help you." They stared at her. They had never seen a human before. She must have looked strange to them. Too solid, too heavy, too small-eyed. "You are human?" one of them asked. "Yes." "The ruthless ones?" Smiled softly. "Yes, the ruthless ones. We are here to take you somewhere safe." In orbit, the battle continued. The horizon had destroyed or disabled 8 ships now, but the human vessel was paying a price. Its shields were failing. Its hull had taken multiple hits. Smoke filled several sections, and damage reports streamed across every screen. "Shields at 20%, reported. "We cannot take much more of this." "Have the shuttles landed?" Park asked. "Yes, both teams are on the surface." "Then we have done our job." Park looked at the screens. 42 ships remained. His ship was dying, but his people were on the ground doing what they came to do. "Begin evacuation protocol." "Captain, we are going to crash this ship into the largest vessel we can reach." The crew will evacuate in escape pods. We will continue the mission on the surface. No one argued. No one questioned. This was what they had signed up for. This was what it meant to be human. On the flagship, General Vex received a report that made his blood run cold. "General, we have detected human soldiers on the planet's surface. They are moving toward the civilian camps." Vex's red eyes burned with fury. He had been so focused on the battle in space that he had missed the real threat. The ship had been a distraction. The humans had never planned to fight the fleet. They had planned to reach the planet. "Ruthless," Vex growled. "They truly are ruthless." He turned to his officers. "Send all ground forces to the camps. Kill the humans, kill them all." On the surface, Han received a warning on his communicator. Enemy forces were incoming. A lot of them. He looked at the civilians he had gathered. There were over 100 now. Children, elderly, families. They looked at him with hope in their eyes, hope he could not afford to disappoint. "We need to move," he said, "right now." The medic stepped forward. "Move where?" "To control the whole city." Han pointed toward the edge of the floating island. "The captain gave me coordinates. There is a safe zone being established 3 islands east. We get these people there. That is 5 kilometers away. Then we better start walking." Han lifted a young child onto his shoulders. The child was light, almost weightless. He looked up at the human with curious eyes. "Do not be afraid," Han said softly. "I will not let anything hurt you." They began to move. 100 civilians, 8 human soldiers, 5 kilometers of enemy-controlled territory. Behind them, the sounds of vehicles began to grow louder. The real battle was about to begin. The floating city was burning. Smoke rose from a dozen buildings, twisting into the endless sky. The sound of vehicles echoed through the crystal streets. Somewhere in the distance, weapons fired. Screams followed. Han moved through the chaos with purpose. The child on his shoulders held tight to his head. Behind him, his squad guided over 100 civilians through the narrow paths between buildings. They moved in silence. They moved in fear, but they moved. Walked near the back of the group. Her medical bag was heavy on her shoulder. She watched the civilians with careful eyes, looking for anyone who was hurt or sick. Several elderly struggled to keep up. She slowed down to walk beside them, offering quiet words of encouragement. "We will make it," she told an old woman whose legs were shaking. "Just a little further." "I am too old," the woman said. "Leave me, save the children." "No," his voice was firm but kind. "We do not leave anyone behind. That is not what humans do." The old woman looked at her with confusion. "I have heard that humans are ruthless, that you kill without mercy." Smiled sadly. "We are ruthless, but not in the way you think. We are ruthless in our refusal to give up. We are ruthless in our protection of the weak. We are ruthless in our love." The old woman did not seem to understand, but she kept walking. At the front of the group, Han stopped suddenly. He raised his fist and everyone behind him froze. Ahead, at an intersection of 2 streets, soldiers were setting up a checkpoint. There were 10 of them. They were tall and covered in dark scales. Their weapons were large and cruel-looking. They had not seen the humans yet, but they would soon. Lee moved up beside Han. She studied the enemy with sharp eyes. 10 hostiles, 2 heavy weapons, the rest carrying standard rifles. "Can we go around?" Han asked. Checked her map. "No, this is the only path that leads to the bridge. Every other route is blocked or too dangerous for civilians." Han made his decision quickly. "Then we go through, take the rooftops. When I give the signal, hit the heavy weapons first. The rest of us will move in from ground level." "What about the civilians?" asked. "They stay here until the path is clear. Keep them quiet and keep them safe." Han set the child down gently. He looked into the young one's eyes. I will come back for you, I promise." The child nodded. There were no tears, there was only trust. Han and 3 of his soldiers moved toward the checkpoint. They stayed low, using the strange crystal buildings as cover, and climbed to higher ground, finding positions where they could see the enemy clearly. The soldiers were talking among themselves. They were confident, they were laughing. They had conquered this world. What did they have to fear? Han gave the signal. 2 shots rang out from above. The soldiers with heavy weapons fell before they could react. In the same moment, Han and his team opened fire from the street level. They were fast and strong, but they were not ready for this. Humans fought differently than other species. They did not stand in neat lines and trade shots. They moved. They adapted. They attacked from multiple angles at once. In 8 seconds it was over. 10 soldiers lay on the ground. None of them were moving. Clear called down from her position. Move the civilians, Han ordered. Fast. More will come when these ones do not report in. The group moved through the intersection quickly. They tried not to look at the bodies on the ground. Some of them covered their children's eyes. Others stared with a mix of horror and wonder. Elder Soma was among the civilians now. She had been found in a camp near the edge of the city, waiting with her people for whatever fate they had planned. When the humans had appeared and started leading people to safety, she had joined them without question. Now she watched Han with new eyes. She saw how he carried the children who could not walk fast enough. She saw how he gave his own water to those who were thirsty. She saw how he put himself between the civilians and any danger without hesitation. This was not the ruthlessness she had been warned about. This was something else entirely. "Sergeant Han," she said, approaching him as they continued to move, "may I ask you a question?" Han did not slow down, but he nodded. "Ask." "Why did you come here? Your ship was alone, your people are few, you had no chance of victory. Why did you come?" Han was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was tired but certain. "Because you asked for help, and we could hear you." "But you will die here." "Maybe, probably." He looked at her with those strange human eyes. "But we are not dead yet, and until we are, we fight. That is what we do." Soma did not know what to say. In all her years, she had never met beings like these. The galaxy had called them monsters. The Council had classified them as dangerous predators. But here they were, dying to save a species they had never met. Perhaps, she thought, the galaxy was wrong about humans. In orbit, what remained of the horizon fell toward the planet. Captain Park had aimed it at the largest cruiser, and the collision had destroyed both vessels. The crew had escaped in pods, scattered across the atmosphere like seeds in the wind. Park landed on a floating island 3 kilometers from Han's position. His pod hit hard, rolling twice before coming to a stop. He kicked open the emergency door and climbed out into the alien air. The sky was full of smoke and fire. In the distance, he could see other escape pods landing. His crew was scattered but alive. Now they needed to regroup. His communicator crackled. "Captain, I landed about 1 kilometer north of your position. I have 6 crew members with me." "Good, head toward the rendezvous point. I will gather everyone I can find along the way." "Understood, and Captain, they are sending reinforcements from orbit. 3 transport ships full of soldiers. They will be on the surface in 20 minutes. Park looked up at the sky. He could see the transports descending through the clouds. 300 more soldiers at least. His people were already outnumbered. This would make it worse. "Then we have 20 minutes to prepare," he said. "Move fast." On another part of the city, the second squad of human soldiers was having their own problems. They had gathered 200 civilians from the main camp, but patrols were everywhere now. Every route was blocked. Every bridge was watched. The squad leader was a woman named. She was short and thin, but her eyes burned with fierce determination. She had grown up in the district of Seoul. She had clawed her way into the military through pure will. She did not know how to quit. "There has to be a way," she muttered, studying her map. The civilians huddled behind her, scared and exhausted. One of her soldiers, a young man named, pointed toward the edge of the floating island. "What about down there? The maintenance tunnels. They use them to access the engines that keep the island in the air." Looked where he was pointing. Below the main level of the city, a network of tunnels ran through the understructure. They were dark and narrow, not meant for large groups, but they were hidden from patrols. "It is risky," she said. "If we get trapped down there, there is no way out." "If we stay up here, they will find us," replied. "At least down there we have a chance." Made her decision. "We go down, spread the word to the civilians, move in single file, keep quiet, keep moving." The entrance to the tunnels was a small hatch in the floor of a maintenance building. One by one, they climbed down into the darkness. The humans went first and last, protecting the civilians from both ends. The tunnels were narrow and low. Humans had to duck their heads. They who were taller but thinner moved more easily. Strange machinery hummed around them. Lights flickered in the walls, casting shadows that moved like living things. "What keeps these islands floating?" asked one of the "Anti-gravity generators," they replied. "They have worked for thousands of years without stopping. Our ancestors built them. We do not fully understand them anymore." Nodded. It was strange to think about. A technology so old that even its creators had forgotten how it worked. Humanity was young compared to most species in the galaxy. They still remembered how to build everything they had. Maybe that was another difference between humans and others. Humans never forgot how to survive. Above them, soldiers searched the streets. They found the empty camp. They found the bodies at the checkpoint. They reported to General Vex that the humans were moving civilians to unknown locations. Vex was furious. He had underestimated these creatures. He would not make that mistake again. "Find them," he ordered. "Search every building, every tunnel, every corner of every island. Find them and kill them. Leave no human alive." His soldiers obeyed. The hunt intensified. In the maintenance tunnels, his group continued to move. They had been walking for 30 minutes now. The civilians were tired. The children were crying, but they kept going. Suddenly held up her hand. Everyone stopped. Ahead there was light, and voices. She signaled to her team. They moved forward silently, leaving the civilians behind. Around the corner they found a junction where 3 tunnels met. A group of soldiers was there, setting up equipment. They were placing explosives on the walls. "They are going to blow the tunnels," whispered. "If they collapse this section, anyone inside will fall thousands of meters." Counted the enemy, 8 soldiers. She had 5. The civilians were too close. If a firefight started, they would be caught in it. She made a choice that only a human would make. "Stay here," she whispered to her team. "Protect the civilians. I am going out there." Alone grabbed her arm. "That is suicide." "Maybe," she smiled grimly. "But if I can get them away from this position, you can lead the civilians through. That is what matters." Before anyone could argue, she stepped into the junction. They saw her immediately. 8 weapons pointed at her chest. "Human," one of them growled. "Where are the others?" Raised her hand slowly. "I am alone. I got separated from my unit. I surrender." They laughed. They moved toward her, weapons ready. They were so focused on their prize that they did not look behind them. In the shadows, and the others moved the civilians through the junction. They moved in absolute silence, slipping past while they were distracted. Watched them go. She saw the last child disappear into the far tunnel. She saw look back at her with pain in his eyes. She nodded at him. "Go save them." Then they grabbed her, and everything went dark. An hour later, Hans' group reached the rendezvous point. It was a large platform at the center of a floating garden. Trees from many worlds grew here, creating a peaceful space where came to meditate and think. Now it was full of refugees. Over 500 civilians had been gathered here by various human teams. Captain Park stood at the center, coordinating rescue efforts with a calm voice. Han approached him. "Captain, we brought 112 civilians." "Good work, Sergeant. That brings our total to over 600. Park looked tired. His uniform was torn. There was blood on his face, though it did not seem to be his own. "We have transport ships coming." Lieutenant managed to contact the Resistance. "They have hidden ships in the lower atmosphere." Resistance. Some were not as peaceful as we thought. When they came, a small group hid ships and weapons. They have been waiting for a chance to fight back. Han smiled. "Good, maybe this world has some fight in it after all." The young named appeared beside Elder Soma. He had been part of Han's group since the camp. He had watched everything the humans did. Now his eyes burned with new fire. "I want to fight," he said. "I want to help you." Han looked at the young. He saw himself there many years ago, young and angry and wanting to make a difference. "You want to fight?" Han asked. "Yes." "Then protect your people. Stand between them and danger. That is the hardest fight there is." Nodded slowly, he understood. Around them the sounds of battle grew closer. They were coming. 300 fresh soldiers from orbit, thousands more already on the ground. The humans had saved 600 civilians, but millions more remained in hands. The fight was far from over. The garden platform had become a fortress. Human soldiers had set up defensive positions behind every tree and rock. Civilians huddled in the center, surrounded by their strange protectors. The sky above them was dark with smoke, and the sound of approaching forces grew louder by the minute. Captain Park stood at the edge of the platform looking out at the city. Fires burned everywhere. The floating islands of Prime were slowly being destroyed, but his people had saved over 600 lives already. It was not enough. It would never be enough, but it was something. Lieutenant approached him. Her uniform was torn and she had a bandage wrapped around her left arm, but her eyes were sharp and focused. "Captain, I have been analyzing the command structure," she said. "I think I found something." "Tell me." "They are organized around their general, General Vex. All orders come from him. All communication goes through him. Their soldiers are strong and well-trained, but they are not creative. They wait for orders before acting." Park nodded slowly. "If we remove the general, the army falls apart." "Yes, without Vex, the forces will lose coordination. Their captains will argue among themselves. Their soldiers will become confused. It will not win the war, but it will buy time." "Time for what?" "Time for the resistance to evacuate more civilians. Time for the council to change their minds and send help." Paused. "Time for miracles." Park smiled grimly. "I have never believed in miracles, but I believe in creating opportunities." He turned to face her fully. "Where is Vex now?" "His flagship was destroyed when we rammed it, but he escaped. He is on the surface now, in the main government building of the capital island. He is using it as his command center." "How many soldiers are guarding him?" "At least 200. The building is heavily fortified. Any direct attack would fail." Park thought about this. A direct attack would fail, but humans had never been good at direct attacks. They were much better at doing things that enemies did not expect. "I need volunteers," he said. 5 people for a mission that will probably get them killed." Did not hesitate. "I volunteer." "I need you here, Lieutenant. You are the only one who can coordinate the defense." "Then who will you take?" Park looked across the platform. His eyes found the people he needed. Han, the sergeant who had already proven himself 100 times. The navigator who had flown them through impossible odds. Lee, the young soldier with perfect aim, who had just arrived with the civilians from the tunnels. And one more. He walked over to. She was sitting against a tree, her face bruised and bloody. They had beaten her before she escaped, but she had escaped. That was what mattered. "Sergeant," he said, "I heard you surrendered yourself to save 200 civilians." looked up at him. Her eyes were tired but unbroken. "Yes, Captain." "They let you go." I did not give them a choice. She lifted her hands. Her wrists were raw and bleeding where the restraints had cut into them. "They underestimated me. They will not make that mistake again." Park smiled. "I am about to ask you to do something even more dangerous." Good, I was getting bored. He gathered his 5 volunteers in a quiet corner of the platform. He explained the mission. Kill General Vex, cut off the head of the snake, change the course of the battle. No one looked afraid. No one asked about the odds. These were humans. They had stopped counting odds long ago. "We will enter through the lower levels," Park explained. "The building was designed by architects. It has maintenance tunnels similar to the ones Sargent already explored. We go in quiet, find Vex, and end this." "And then?" Han asked. "Then we get out if we can." Park met each of their eyes. "I will not lie to you. The chances of coming back are small. If anyone wants to stay, I will not judge them." No one moved. No one spoke. The answer was clear. They left the platform as night began to fall. They did not have a sun like Earth. Their world orbited a gentle red star that never fully set, but the smoke from the fires created an artificial darkness that hid the human team as they moved. They traveled across 2 bridges through a ruined marketplace and past the remains of a school. Everywhere they went, they saw signs of destruction. Bodies lay in the streets. Buildings had been broken open, their contents scattered. They had not just conquered this world. They had tried to break its spirit. The navigator was quiet as they walked. He had not been trained for ground combat. His place was on a ship, reading star charts and calculating trajectories. But when the captain had asked for volunteers, he had not hesitated. "Why did you come?" Lee asked him quietly. Shrugged. "The captain needed people. I was available." "You could have stayed with the civilians. No one would have blamed you." "I would have blamed me." He looked up at the sky where patrol ships flew in the distance. "I spent my whole life running numbers, calculating risks, finding the safe path. But sometimes there is no safe path. Sometimes you have to walk into the fire and trust that you will walk out the other side." Nodded. She understood. They all did. They reached the government building after 2 hours of careful movement. It was a massive structure that floated at the center of the capital island. Beautiful crystal towers rose from its base, catching the light of the red star and scattering it in rainbow patterns. Soldiers patrolled every entrance. Guard posts had been set up on every corner. Spotlights swept the surrounding platforms, searching for enemies. Park studied the defenses carefully. The main entrance is heavily guarded. The side entrances are watched, but there. He pointed to a small vent on the lower level. Maintenance access, too small for it to use. "Perfect for humans," said with a grim smile. They moved in the shadows, avoiding the spotlights. Han used a blade to cut through the vent cover. One by one, they climbed inside. The maintenance tunnels were cramped and dark. They moved in single file, following navigation. He had downloaded the building's blueprints from a database. The information was old, but it was better than nothing. They encountered their first enemy in a junction room. 2 technicians were working on a power console. They never saw the humans coming. Han handled them in silence. Higher they climbed. The building was designed like a spiral with the most important rooms at the top. That was where Vex would be, the central command room, the place where he controlled his army. On the 30th level, they ran into trouble. A patrol was moving through the corridor above them. 6 soldiers with heavy weapons. They had not seen the humans yet, but they would soon. Park made a quick decision. He pointed to an alternate route, a maintenance shaft that led to the level above the patrol. They would go around. They climbed in silence. The shaft was barely wide enough for a human body. Who was the largest of the group struggled to fit, but he made it. They emerged on the 45th level. According to SMAP, The command room was 5 floors above. And then they heard the scream. It came from a room nearby, a door marked with symbols. The scream was high and filled with pain. It was not human, it was. Park stopped. He looked at his team. They all knew what he was thinking. The mission was to kill Vex, nothing else. Every moment they delayed increased the chance of being discovered. But that scream, that pain, moved first. She did not ask permission. She simply walked to the door, checked her weapon, and kicked it open. Inside was a horror. 3 soldiers stood around a civilian. They were torturing her, using tools that cut and burned. She was still alive, but barely. They turned at the sound of the door. They never finished turning. Han and opened fire at the same moment. They fell. The room went quiet except for the soft crying of the woman. Moved to her side. He was trained in first aid. His hands moved quickly, treating her wounds as best he could. She will live, but she needs real medical care. Park looked at the woman. She was young, maybe barely an adult by standards. Her blue skin was marked with burns and cuts. Her large eyes were empty with shock. They could not take her with them. They could not leave her here. He made another impossible choice. Stay with her, keep her safe until we finish the mission, then find a way back to the others. Nodded without hesitation. I will protect her, Captain. Park put a hand on his navigator's shoulder. Thank you for everything. They left behind. Now there were 5. They climbed higher, the 55th level, the 60th. The sounds of battle reached them from outside. They were attacking the garden platform, was holding the line, but she could not hold forever. They had to hurry. The command room was on the 67th level. 2 massive doors blocked the entrance. 4 guards stood watch. Park signaled his team. This would not be quiet. This would be fast and brutal. They attacked. Shot 2 guards before they could raise their weapons. Han and hit the other 2 at close range. The doors did not open easily but had brought explosives. The blast shook the entire level. The doors fell inward, and there, standing at the center of the command room, was General Vex. He was even larger in person than the reports had suggested. His scales were black like space itself. His red eyes burned with ancient fury. He held a weapon that looked like a sword made of fire. Around him stood 20 soldiers, his personal guard, the best they had to offer. Humans, Vex growled, you came for me. Park stepped forward, his weapon was raised, his eyes were steady. General Vex, your war ends here. Vex laughed. It was an ugly, cruel sound. You have courage, little predator, I will give you that, but courage does not win battles. Strength wins battles, and I have more strength than you could ever imagine. You are wrong. Park's voice was calm. Strength is not about size or weapons or numbers. Strength is about will, and our will is stronger than yours. Pretty words. Let us see if they protect you from this. Vex raised his fire sword and attacked. The battle was short and brutal. The guards fell one by one, overwhelmed by human tactics they had never faced before. Took 3 of them with a grenade. Han fought through 5 more with nothing but his hands when his weapon failed. Never missed a shot. Held the door against reinforcements that tried to enter. And Park faced Vex alone. The general was fast for his size. His fire sword cut through the air with deadly precision. Park dodged and ducked, looking for an opening. He could not match Vex in strength, but he did not need to. He just needed to outlast him. Vex swung high. Park went low. Vex stabbed forward. Park stepped aside. Again and again the general attacked. Again and again the human avoided death by centimeters. Stand still and die, Vex roared. No, Park said simply. I do not think I will. Vex overextended. His sword went wide, and Park struck. His knife found the gap in Vex's armor. The blade went deep into the general's throat. Dark blood sprayed across the floor. Vex fell to his knees. His red eyes were wide with disbelief. How could you? Park stood over him. His face was sad, not triumphant. Because you underestimated us like everyone else. Vex's eyes went dark. The general of the Dominion was dead. The room went silent. The battle was over. Han checked the team. They were all wounded, they were all exhausted, but they were all alive. Now what? He asked. Park looked out the window. In the distance he could see the garden platform. Fires were burning there too. The attack was still ongoing. Now we end this, he said. Find the communication system. I am going to send a message. Captain Park stood before the communication console in the command room. The body of General Vex lay behind him, dark blood pooling on the crystal floor. Around him, his team stood guard, weapons ready for any enemy who might come through the broken doors. The console was alien, covered with symbols he did not recognize. But technology was not so different from what humans used. After a few moments of exploration, found what he was looking for. He opened a channel. The signal went out across the entire planet. Every soldier heard it. Every hiding in the ruins heard it. Every ship in orbit heard it. This is Captain Park of the human vessel Horizon. General Vex is dead. Your leader has fallen. Your command structure is broken. He paused, letting the words sink in. You have a choice now. Continue fighting and die, or surrender and live. The decision is yours. There was silence. Then across the city, the sounds of battle began to change. At the garden platform, Lieutenant heard the message through her communicator. She was crouched behind a barrier of fallen trees, firing at a wave of soldiers who had been pushing toward the civilian center. But when the message finished, the attack stopped. The enemy soldiers looked at each other. Their general was dead. Their orders had stopped coming. They did not know what to do. Saw her chance. She stood up slowly, her weapon lowered but ready. You heard your captain's words. This fight is over. Lay down your weapons. For a long moment, nothing happened. The soldiers were warriors. They had been trained to fight, not surrender. Their pride demanded blood. Then one of them dropped his weapon. It clattered on the crystal ground with a sound like breaking glass. Another followed, then another. Within minutes, 40 soldiers had surrendered. They sat in rows, their hands on their heads, while human soldiers collected their weapons. The battle for the garden platform was over. Across the city, similar scenes played out. Without their general, the army fell into chaos. Some units tried to continue fighting. They were met with fierce resistance from human soldiers who had no intention of giving up. Other units retreated to their transports and tried to flee. But the resistance had seized control of the orbital defense grid. The ships could not escape. In the tunnels beneath the city, sat with the young woman he had been protecting. She had fallen asleep against his shoulder, exhausted by pain and fear. He had not slept at all. He had watched over her through the long hours, listening to the battle above. When the captain's message came through, felt tears in his eyes. He had not cried since he was a child. But now, in this moment, he could not help himself. They had done it. They had really done it. He gently woke the woman. It is over, he said softly. We won. She looked at him with those large eyes. They were still filled with pain, but now there was something else there too. Hope. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for staying with me. You are welcome, helped her to her feet. Now let us get you somewhere safe. In the government building, Park and his team made their way back down to ground level. The soldiers they encountered did not fight. They stood aside, watching the humans pass with a mix of fear and confusion. When they reached the street, they found a crowd waiting for them. Civilians who had hidden in the ruins of their city. They had heard the message. They had seen the soldiers dropping their weapons, and they had come out to see the beings who had saved them. Elder Soma pushed through the crowd. When she saw Park, she fell to her knees before him. Captain, she said, her voice breaking, we owe you everything, our lives, our world, our future. How can we ever repay you? Park reached down and helped her to her feet. "You owe us nothing. We did what anyone should have done." But no one else came. The council refused. The other species refused. Only you answered our call. "Then perhaps the council was wrong about us," Park said gently. "And perhaps you should ask yourself what kind of galaxy you want to live in. One where the strong abandon the weak, or one where everyone helps each other." Soma nodded slowly. She understood what he was saying. The galaxy had failed them. But these humans, these so-called ruthless predators, had not. 3 days passed. The remaining forces surrendered or fled. The resistance, aided by human soldiers, took control of the orbital stations. Communications were restored with the rest of the galaxy. And then the council came. Ambassador Telos arrived on a diplomatic shuttle, surrounded by representatives from a dozen species. They landed on the same platform where so much blood had been spilled. They stepped out in their fine robes and shining medals, expecting to take charge of the situation. What they found was something they did not expect. Over 3,000 civilians stood in organized groups. They were tired and dirty and injured, but they were alive. Human soldiers stood among them, helping carry children and supporting the elderly. Medical stations had been set up, manned by and human medics working side by side. And at the center of it all stood Captain Park. Telos approached him slowly. The ambassador's 4 arms were clasped in front of him. His large eyes were filled with something that might have been shame. "Captain Park," he said formally, "on behalf of the Interstellar Council, I wish to thank you for your intervention." Park looked at the ambassador for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was calm but cold. "Intervention, is that what you call it?" Yes, your actions have preserved the population. The council is grateful." "The council is grateful." Park stepped closer. Telos had to fight the urge to step back. Where was the council when the first attacked? Where were the? There were complications. Political considerations, treaties that could not be broken. 3 billion people were going to die, and you had political considerations. Telos had no answer. He could not meet the human's eyes. Elder Soma stepped forward. Her voice was strong and clear. "Ambassador Telos, I wish to make a formal statement for the council records." "Of course, Elder." "The people no longer wish to rely on the protection of the Interstellar Council. We have seen what that protection is worth. Nothing. When we needed help, the Council sent words. The humans sent soldiers." She paused, looking at Park with something like reverence. "We will be seeking a new alliance with Earth." The Council representatives began to murmur among themselves. This was unexpected. This was dangerous. If they allied with the humans, other species might follow. The balance of power in the galaxy could shift. "Elder Soma," Telos said carefully, "perhaps you should take more time to consider this decision. The humans are unpredictable, dangerous. They are classified as..." "Ruthless?" Soma interrupted. "Yes, I have heard this word many times. I used to believe it meant something terrible, but I have learned what it really means." She looked at the human soldiers around her, at the captain who had risked everything, at the brave people who had died to save strangers. "Ruthless means they do not give up. Ruthless means they do not abandon the helpless. Ruthless means they will walk through fire and blood and death to protect those who cannot protect themselves." Her voice grew louder, carrying across the platform. "If that is what ruthless means, then I am proud to call them our allies." The crowd began to cheer. The sound rose like a wave, washing over the council representatives. They had never heard anything like it. 3,000 voices raised in celebration and gratitude. Park stood in the center of it all, but he did not smile. He was thinking of the crew he had lost. 17 humans had died in this battle. 17 sons and daughters and siblings and friends who would never go home. Han appeared beside him. The sergeant was battered and bruised, but he was alive. He had the young at his side. "Captain," Han said quietly, "we did something good here." We did what we had to do. That is the same thing. Park finally allowed himself a small smile. Maybe you are right, Sergeant. Lieutenant approached. She was holding a data pad with reports from across the planet. Captain, final count. Over 400,000 civilians evacuated from danger zones. Forces neutralized. The planet is secure. Casualties: 17 dead, 23 wounded. His voice was steady, but her eyes showed the weight of those numbers. They all died fighting. They all died saving lives. Park nodded. We will remember them always. The sun set slowly over Prime. The fires were going out. The sounds of battle had faded into silence. For the first time in weeks, they looked up at their beautiful sky and saw hope. Elder Soma found Park sitting alone at the edge of the platform, looking out at the floating islands of her world. She sat down beside him without speaking. For a long time, they watched the sunset together. What will you do now? She asked finally. Return to Earth, report to our leaders, wait for the next call for help, he shrugged. It is what we do. Will there be consequences for acting without permission from the Council? Park smiled. Probably. There are always politicians who prefer talk to action, but they will not stop us. They cannot stop us, because this is who we are. Ruthless, Soma said softly. Stubborn, Park corrected. Hopeful, stupid maybe, but above all else human. Soma reached out and placed her thin blue hand on his rough human one. Thank you, Captain Park. Thank you for coming when no one else would. Thank you for fighting when everyone else had given up. Thank you for being ruthless. Park looked at her hand on his. Such a simple gesture, such a powerful meaning. You are welcome, Elder Soma. He looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the purple sky. That is what we do. That is all we have ever done. When someone needs help, we answer. When someone is in danger, we fight. When the galaxy says something is impossible, we prove them wrong. He stood up, offering his hand to help her rise. The Interstellar Council called us ruthless because they did not understand. They saw our wars and our weapons and our violence. They did not see what was beneath it all. And what is that? Park looked back at his crew, at the humans who had risked everything for strangers, at the friends who had died for an idea, at the survivors who were already planning how to help rebuild this world. Love, he said simply. We are ruthless because we love. We love life and we love freedom and we love each other. And when those things are threatened, we will burn down the galaxy to protect them. Soma nodded slowly. She finally understood. Humans were not monsters. They were not mindless predators. They were something far more dangerous than that. They were protectors, and the galaxy would never be the same. 1 week later, the Horizon's crew departed Prime aboard a borrowed ship. They left behind a world in recovery, an alliance in formation, and a legend that would spread across the stars. The ruthless humans, the ones who came when no one else would, the ones who fought when no one else dared, the ones who proved that true strength is not about weapons or size or numbers. True strength is about the will to protect what matters. And humans had more will than any species in the galaxy.